Evan sighed and breathed in the cool night air. It was late spring, close enough that summer would be coming soon but still brisk at night. Usually he would have stayed inside, but tonight he had a once-in-a-lifetime chance to watch a meteor splinter directly overhead in the night sky. He checked his watch. It wouldn't be long now. There was a flash as it hit the edge of the atmosphere, and then little white pieces flew in all directions like some kind of eerie firework. It lasted less than a minute. Evan watched until they had faded and then walked back to his house. Such large meteors were rare, and even rarer that they hit the atmosphere so directly. The chances that it would happen right over his small town, it was amazing. Sydney walked into school the next morning, bleary-eyed and grumbling. 1 month, she had 1 month until she graduated. Honestly, she didn't see the point of school, she was doing it for her mother. The bell rang. She checked the clock. No point going to her first period class, the teacher never took attendance anyways. She wandered towards the nearest bathroom where she knew she would hide from any inquisitive teachers until second period. She was so busy staring at her phone that she didn't even notice her outfit changing as she walked into the bathroom. She absent-mindedly tugged at her jeans to adjust her underwear, which seemed to have gotten bunched up. Except her jeans seemed to disappear in her hand and she touched plastic. Huh? Ah. Sydney gasped. She was wearing a pink princess t-shirt, short skirt and what seemed like an oversized diaper underneath. She flipped her skirt up for just a moment to check. Not a diaper but a pull-up. Suddenly her cell phone twisted in her hand, leaving her holding a stuffed teddy bear. Sydney looked around in shock. The stalls and sinks had disappeared, replaced by training potties and a few changing tables in the back that looked big enough for her. Classmates that she knew hurried into the bathroom, their hands pressed against their crotches, clearly needing to go potty like they were 2-year-olds. Teachers stood by the potties, helping them and wiping a few of them. Sydney, do you need help? Sydney turned and saw a teacher she knew, Ms. Edwards, looking at her. What do you mean? She asked. Do you need to go potty? I can help if you're nervous. And no. Sydney stuttered. Her bowels tinged. It felt like a fart. Sydney pushed and something solid slipped between her butt cheeks and entered her pull-up. Sydney stood there in shock. Sydney. Ms. Edwards exclaimed. I know. What? Sydney asked. She was so completely caught off guard that she just did the first thing her instincts told her to do. She squatted to finish her poop. That made Ms. Edwards even angrier at her. Sydney, did you just do that on purpose? She asked. She clearly thought Sydney had. It was an accident. Sydney said. Intellectually she realized how unconvincing she must have sounded. She'd just squatted and pooped her pull-up without even trying to get to one of the potties and now she was stuttering. But she had no idea how she was supposed to act. Can I have a clean pull-up? She tried, not believing that she was asking for a pull-up instead of panties. No, Ms. Edwards said simply, taking Sydney by the arm and marching her into the corner. If you want to poop your pants, then you aren't ready for pull-ups. But, hey wait, this isn't fair. Sydney said. Yes it is. Ms. Edwards said, if you choose to poop your pants, then you belong in diapers. Diapers. Ms. Edwards ignored her and pulled down her soiled pull-up. Sydney squeaked and covered herself as best she could with her hands. Do you mind? No need to be so dramatic. Ms. Edwards said, pressing a baby wipe to Sydney's behind like it was the most normal thing in the world. Sydney turned beet red, even though none of the others around her seemed to think much of it. I can wipe myself. She said, not believing that she even needed to say it. I know you can. Ms. Edwards said in the most patronizing voice Sydney had ever heard. I'm just helping. I don't need diapers either. Sydney protested as Ms. Edwards unfolded a thick, disposable diaper. It had patterns on the front, like a baby diaper, except big enough to fit Sydney. It's just a precaution in case you have another accident. Ms. Edwards said. I don't have accidents. Sydney said. Ms. Edwards sighed and held up the pull-up she had just taken off Sydney. There was a brown, blotchy stain on the seat. It was just once. Sydney said, trying to save face. Ms. Edwards just nodded and taped the diaper on. She stood up and threw the used pull-up in a nearby diaper pail. Sydney fled the bathroom, her diaper forcing her to toddle a little on the way out. Except with every step, her diaper seemed to get thinner and thinner. Her pants reappeared on her t-shirt went back to normal, and by the time she was back in the hallway she was completely normal again. A couple kids gave her looks as they passed. Sydney patted her butt to make sure she was back to panties and hurried away, deciding that maybe class wasn't so bad after all. Sydney spent the rest of the day trying to forget what had happened. She avoided the first-floor bathroom at all costs. Nothing out of the ordinary happened until the next morning when her mother dropped her off at school. Sydney got out of the car and turned to wave her mother goodbye, but to her surprise, her mother got out too. Mom. she asked. Hold my hand while we cross the street, honey. Sydney's mother said, taking Sydney's hand and leading her. As she walked, Sydney felt a familiar feeling under her pants. Not again. She groaned. Her pants went from jeans to overalls with straps and her shirt turned into a loose, Winnie the Pooh t-shirt. There was a distinct crinkling as she walked. She was back in pull-ups. Did you have an accident? Her mother asked. What? No. Sydney said. Why did adults have to be obsessed with her bathroom habits? Even assuming that she did have another accident, she was fully capable of taking care of it herself. Ms. Edwards met them on the sidewalk. So sorry about yesterday. Sydney's mother said I have no idea what was with her. She pooped herself again after she got home. Sydney blushed. Did they have to talk about this on a public sidewalk? Ms. Edwards said I couldn't believe it myself. I mean, she's usually such a darling angel, but she insisted that she didn't need to go and then immediately chose to relieve herself into her pull UPS. Sydney, is that true? Sydney's mother asked. Sydney sucked it up. Maybe if she acted like the preschooler they apparently thought she was, she could get through this quickly. Yes, I'm really sorry, Ms. Edwards. I just thought that I could be a big girl and hold it for a long time like mommy. But you are a big girl. Sydney's mother said, ruffling her hair. Needing to take lots of potty breaks isn't anything to be ashamed of. Sydney stuck her thumb in her mouth to make herself look more innocent. Thank you, she said, intentionally adding a lisp to her voice. Good. And honey, take your thumb out of your mouth, we're trying to break that habit, remember? Sydney quickly pulled her thumb out. Trying to break the habit. Was it not obvious she was acting? Or was her mother playing along? Yes, mommy. Sydney's mother turned back to Ms. Edwards. She's a patronizing little rascal, but I think she's ready for pull UPS. Ms. Edwards sighed. Very well, but one more messy accident will mean that she'll need to wear diapers until she goes a full week without pooping herself. Chloe wandered around the school. What was going on? She'd been trying to ignore the fact her classmates seemed to be turning into babies and back again randomly, but at this point it was almost impossible. She felt like she should be trying to act normal, everyone else seemed to be, but then again no one else seemed to realize something strange was going on. Chloe. Chloe turned around and saw one of her teachers, Mr. Tyler, jogging towards her. Chloe, are you all right? Mr. Tyler asked. Yes. Chloe said, quickly patting her butt. No crinkling, she was currently an adult. Oh. Mr. Tyler said it's just that you weren't in class yesterday and you've never missed a class before. I was just a little worried. Chloe's heart jumped. Her perfect attendance. But there hadn't been class yesterday, had there? She'd looked in the classroom and it had been nothing but a bunch of her classmates running around dressed as babies. Not only that, but when she had stepped into the classroom, her outfit had changed to a dress and pull-up. She'd run out in fright. Oh, Chloe. Mr. Tyler put his hand on her shoulder. I marked you as present, okay? You're the best student I've seen in a while, so I trust it was for a good reason. But please don't let it happen again, okay? Chloe nodded. Of course. Thanks so much, Mr. Tyler, she said. Mr. Tyler walked away and Chloe sighed in relief. You see it too, don't you? Chloe turned around to see Evan. They weren't exactly best friends, but they had been in some classes together. See, what? Chloe asked. That since yesterday every time someone walks into the first floor girls' bathroom their panties change into pull UPS and they become toddlers trying not to fail their potty training. Chloe sighed. Yeah. I see it. Evan nodded. Listen, I've got some ideas about what's going on. You want to come look at what I have? I'd like a second set of eyes on it. Later, I'll text you. Mr. Tyler's class starts in a few minutes. You're still going to class? Evan asked. Isn't Mr. Tyler's one of the classrooms that is, full of babies? I am 1 month away from perfect attendance. Chloe said. What's the worst thing that can happen if I'm wearing pull UPS? It might wear off on you. Evan suggested. He winced as Chloe gave him a look. Sorry, yeah, you'll probably be fine. Just, if you start to turn into a baby, leave, okay? I don't think there are very many of us that recognize something's going on. I'll be fine. Chloe said. Sydney stopped Chloe on her way into class. What did I miss yesterday? Sydney asked. I wasn't in class either. Chloe said. You shouldn't skip so much, you could still flunk out. Yeah. Sydney waved her down. She walked into the classroom and felt her panties crinkle as her clothing changed to her overalls and t-shirt. Her first thought was that at least she wasn't in diapers. She blushed and took a seat on the floor with the rest of her classmates. Chloe took a deep breath and stepped into the classroom afterwards. Her panties crinkled and thickened. Her dress changed to bright pink and became a lot looser fitting, easier to play in. She stood there for a second, inspecting her new, preschool clothing. All around her she could catch glimpses of pull ups peeking out from under skirts and above waistbands. None of the students seemed to be trying to hide it. A couple of the girls in dresses were even hugging their knees, causing their skirts to ride up around their waists, giving anyone in front of them a clear view of their crinkly undergarments. Chloe sat and blushed, keeping her legs straight and her skirt down to preserve her dignity. "All right, class," Mr. Tyler said, clapping his hands to get everyone's attention. "Today we are going to read a story." "But, don't we have a test today?" Chloe muttered to herself, looking around. Everyone else seemed to act like it was normal. She sat and listened to Mr. Tyler read a chapter of the book. After Mr. Tyler was done, he let them go for free time. Chloe fidgeted. She had started to feel the urge to pee during story time and it just gotten stronger. Not only that, she'd thought she smelled urine, as though some of her classmates had actually used their pull ups. But that was impossible, they were much too old. "Mr. Tyler, I need to go potty," a nearby boy, Zach, announced. Mr. Tyler nodded and led him to a training potty in the corner of the room. Chloe gaped as Mr. Tyler pulled his pants and then his pull-up down and sat him on the training potty. Chloe quickly looked away. Her first thought was that she would never do that. Then her bladder twinged again, letting her know that it was dangerously full. She looked at the clock. She wasn't going to make it for another 20 minutes. Mr. Tyler finished up with Zach and emptied the training potty. Chloe swallowed her pride. "Mr. Tyler?" Chloe asked. "Yes, what is it?" "I need to go pee." "Okay." Mr. Tyler took her by the hand and led her to the training potty. Chloe blushed as she pulled down her pants and then her pull up and sat on the potty. "Wow. Good girl," Mr. Tyler praised, just causing Chloe to turn even redder. Was knowing how to use a toilet really that impressive? She closed her eyes so she wouldn't have to see her teacher watch her peeing. There was the soft patter of urine onto hard plastic. Sydney watched Chloe enviously, annoyed that she was getting praise, even if it was over something like potty training. Chloe had always been smarter than everyone else. She was also modest about it, but that just made it all the more annoying. While she was watching Chloe, Sydney felt a twinge in her bowels. She jumped up and ran to Mr. Tyler. "Mr. Tyler, I need to poop," she said. For some reason her first instinct had been to tell the nearest grown-up as soon as she felt like she had to go. She immediately blushed red after doing so, but Mr. Tyler didn't seem to think anything of it. "You'll just need to wait." Mr. Tyler said. "You can wait 5 minutes while Chloe uses the potty, can't you?" It should have been a stupid question, but Sydney actually wasn't sure she could. She wasn't about to admit that she oftentimes had to use her pull ups as a crutch for her very weak potty training though, so she just nodded. Done, Chloe blushed from the potty. "Can you wipe too?" Mr. Tyler asked, offering her a roll of toilet paper. "Yes," Chloe said, keeping her eyes down as she broke off a piece and wiped herself. Mr. Tyler beamed. "Good job," he praised. "You're a little expert at this, aren't you?" Yeah," Chloe said. She stood up and pulled her pull-up back up around her waist and smoothed out her dress. Sydney was discovering that 5 minutes was far too long to wait to poop. Her face was bright red from straining, but her muscles were just not trained enough to hold for more than a minute or two. "No." Sydney turned around in a circle, trying to figure out how she was supposed to get her overalls off. She could feel the pressure building in her bowels, quickly reaching danger levels. She panicked. "You." "Sydney's pooing her pants," someone said. "Sydney." Mr. Tyler turned from Chloe to Sydney, who found herself squatting and messing her pull up. "And no. Accident," Sydney stuttered, waving her hands. She lost her balance, fell backwards onto her butt. She felt some of her mess mush out of the leg holes of her pull-up. Ew. Mr. Tyler took her hand, pulled her up, and took her to a cabinet. He pulled out a package of diapers and broke them open. "No, please don't put me in diapers," Sydney said. Mr. Tyler pushed a pacifier into her mouth and went to work cleaning her messy bottom. "I'm sorry, Sydney, but it's the rules. If you do a stinky in your pull-up, you need to wear a diaper for the rest of the day." "MMMPH," Sydney said, squirming. She wanted so badly to spit the stupid pacifier out, but she found herself sucking on it out of comfort, trying to ease the shame and humiliation of failing her potty training twice in 2 days. Did this mean she had to go back to diapers? All the other kids would make fun of her. Mr. Tyler finished cleaning her and taped the diaper between her legs. Sydney had thought the pull-up was bad, but the diaper was far thicker. It was clearly meant to be able to take multiple wettings and messes in between changes. "Can I please have my overalls back?" Sydney begged. She was very aware of the other kids' eyes on her exposed diaper. "Unfortunately, your mom will need to wash them before you can wear them again," Mr. Tyler said, holding them up for Sydney and the rest of the classroom to see. There were 2 big, brown poop stains about where the leg holes of Sydney's pull-up would have been. But, Mr. Tyler patted her on the head. From now on you don't need to worry about going potty, okay? It looks like you just need a little more time in diapers. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. Sydney hung her head. Yes, it was something to be embarrassed about. Just a week ago she had been potty trained. She hadn't even thought anything of it. She was on the verge of going to college, and now, was she still going to college? Her diaper crinkled between her legs as she walked back to one of the tables and sat across from Chloe. Even at potty training you're better than me. Sydney complained. Hi. Chloe asked. Well, usually we're big kids in this classroom and you're really good at calculus and you always get the answer right and I never can. Sydney said, and now I'm the baby doing a POO in her diapers and you're the mature one who's ready for big girl underwear. You remember that too? Chloe asked the calculus. Sydney looked at Chloe curiously, like she was trying to decide if she was being made fun of or not. The integral of e to the x is e to the x, the derivative of sine is cosine, the dash. Okay. Sydney waved her hands. I believe you. Chloe sighed. Thank goodness, I thought I was going crazy. So did I. Sydney said. Chloe glanced at Sydney's diaper. Sorry for taking so long on the training potty. Sydney blushed. No, it's, I was holding it because I really didn't want to have to poop in front of everyone. Chloe seemed to buy the lie. Sydney didn't want to ask to confirm, but it seemed like Chloe's potty training hadn't been affected at all. Chloe was still a normal 18-year-old who was just being treated like she was 2. Whereas she was more like a 2-year-old trying to pretend she was 18. Mia couldn't for the life of her understand what was happening. First, all the toilets in the bathroom had been replaced with training potties, then there were teachers in the bathroom monitoring students as they used them. What was going on? She tried to act normal, choosing a training potty at the edge of the room and hoped the teachers would ignore her. She had no such luck. Need any help? Ms. Edwards asked, walking up and staring at Mia while she sat, her pants down, on the potty. No, Mia said quickly. She struggled to pee and only managed to get a little out. When she was done, she stood up, trying to get away, but Ms. Edwards stopped her, holding up a roll of toilet paper. What are you doing? Mia asked. I'm wiping you. Ms. Edwards said. Okay, Mia said. She blushed deep red as Ms. Edwards dabbed toilet paper against her exposed crotch. She was practically an adult. Being treated like she couldn't even wipe herself was just humiliating. She yanked her pants up and hurried out of the bathroom, like the others, just trying to ignore what had happened. That night, as she was eating dinner, Sydney turned to her mother. Hey Mom. Sydney asked. Yeah. I have a random question, what kind of a baby was I? Her mother looked at her with a mix of amusement and curiosity. Why do you ask? Just curious. Her mother shrugged. Well, let's see here. First off, I remember potty training you was a nightmare. A nightmare? Yeah, you'd constantly have accidents at daycare. I'm still not sure if they were intentional or not, but you had to constantly wear diapers even up through the start of kindergarten. It would come in spurts. You'd be fine for a month or 2, but then you'd relapse and start using your pants instead of the potty, and I'd have to buy a couple packs of diapers and start over. Sydney didn't like the sound of that. What else? Let's see, you threw quite a few tantrums when you were a toddler, but you grew out of those pretty quickly. You got in trouble for being mean to kids in daycare a few times. You went back and forth between being fussy and silly in the blink of an eye. All developmentally appropriate things. It was just the diapers that I for the life of me could not figure out. Did I get made fun of for that? Wearing diapers? Eventually, I think so. You started to only want to wear diapers at home when it was just us. Her mother said. Do you not remember that? Up until 2nd grade you would sometimes ask for a diaper when you needed to poop. I'd usually give it to you. I figured so long as you weren't doing it at school there wasn't a problem. I guess not. Sydney stood up and cleared her dishes. I'm going to go to my room now. Sydney took one step after another, slowly climbing the stairs. She doubted she'd ever get used to the feeling of her panties thickening and turning to plastic as she walked. She lost her pants and t-shirt halfway up, apparently young enough that she could wander around her house in just her crinkly undergarments. Speaking of which, she looked down. Her padding was thick with 2 tapes on each side. It looked like even her mother didn't think she was ready for potty training at this point. MMMPH, Sydney murmured. She stuck her thumb in her mouth and sucked without really thinking about it. All right Sydney, let's go potty and then do your bedtime routine and then go to bed, all right? Sydney turned and saw her mother standing there, apparently having followed her up the stairs. She looked at the clock on her wall. It was only 8 o'clock, why did she need to go to bed so early? I don't wanna. Sydney said, getting annoyed. She crossed her arms to show her disapproval. Sydney, come on now, first you need to go potty. Sydney didn't understand why she was suddenly so frustrated with her mother, but it was the most intense feeling of frustration she had felt in a long time. She wanted to scream and kick and bite and yell at the top of her lungs. No. She shouted no potty. She jumped and stomped down hard on the floor and grabbed a pillow and threw it as hard as she could. Sydney, you're being unreasonable. Her mother said, do you want to go back to diapers permanently? No diaper. Sydney shrieked. She suddenly had an idea. So her mother wanted her to go in the potty? Well, she'd do the opposite of what she said. That would show her. Ugh. Sydney squatted and strained. Sydney, no. Her mother telling her not to only made her push harder. Her diaper crinkled softly and drooped. No. Sydney said, sticking her tongue out at her mother. She wet herself too, just for good measure. Potty stupid. She said, crossing her arms defiantly. Her mother looked at her. Sydney got quiet for a moment as it dawned on her that in her anger she had just pooped her diaper like a baby. But the thought only made her angry again. No. 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 She screamed, pounding on the floor and kicking. Her mother sighed and pulled a diaper out of one of her drawers. All right, Sydney, let's get your diaper changed. Sydney suddenly found a pacifier being pushed into her mouth. MMMPH. MMM. She said, her crying growing weaker. Her mother lay her back on a changing mat and broke the tapes on her diaper and pressed a cool wipe to her bare bottom. Easy there, Sydney, everything will be all right. Her mother said. Sydney blushed in shame, only now comprehending what had just happened. Mommy, I'm really dash. No, Sydney, don't apologize. Her mother said it was my fault for trying to potty train you before you were ready. So the potty dash. Don't think about the potty, honey, you can just use your pants. Her mother said, finishing taping the diaper on and patting her on the head. Sydney grinned. Thanks, Mommy. She said, thrilled to be back in diapers. The next day at school, Mia was walking around in a daze. Her mother had insisted that she wear a pull-up to bed as though she was worried Mia was going to wet the bed. Mia couldn't understand it, why was she being treated like she was two? She was walking by some groups of kids when she overheard, turned into a baby. She stopped and looked. Sydney, Chloe, and Evan were standing in a circle talking. You have something to say? Sydney asked irritably, noticing Mia staring. What you were just, talking about? Mia said slowly, people going from being babies to adults? Like in the first floor girls' bathroom. You too? Chloe asked. Yeah. Mia sighed, I thought I was going crazy. We all did. So how many of us are there? Just us four. Just us four? Really? Well, unless you find someone else. Sydney shrugged. We were just talking about what we've discovered. Evan thinks this is all because of that meteor that hit a couple days ago. Chloe explained. I'm willing to believe anything at this point. Mia said. What about you, Chloe? You said you found something. Evan asked. Yeah, check this out. Chloe said. She took a water bottle out of her bag and took about 10 steps towards the bathroom. Her outfit shriveled and changed into play clothes with a pull-up on underneath, but the water bottle warped and turned into a baby bottle. Chloe walked back and the water bottle changed back to normal. I could do this with a lot of objects, but you get the idea. She said. Evan cocked an eyebrow. You're saying that the two realities are connected. Chloe nodded. Not only that, I remembered that my mother had some old parenting books in our attic. I took one and brought it here, and sure enough, the text changed. As in, it said it was normal for teenagers to be in diapers. Yeah. Apparently in the other reality, bodies develop completely before minds even start. People usually aren't potty trained until towards the end of puberty. Sydney frowned, but that doesn't make any sense. If development is that slow, then shouldn't old people have the maturity of 10-year-olds? Well, no. People learn a lot faster in this reality, starting once their brain is ready around 20. That seems to be the trade-off. What would take us a year to learn, 20-somethings in this reality can do it in a month. It takes maybe 2 years to go from basic addition to advanced calculus. So shouldn't they all be super advanced if that's the case? Sydney asked. Not necessarily. Chloe said individually a 50-year-old from our reality and a 50-year-old from here are about the same IQ-wise. Plus, so much of their resources are probably dedicated to taking care of babies that it offsets any benefit. If 25% of your population is in diapers, yeah, that would be a huge drain. Evan said thoughtfully, I think I'd find it a lot more interesting if I didn't need to wear pull-ups. Sydney. Sydney recognized Mr. Tyler's voice and groaned. It was never a good thing when teachers approached her. What? She asked. Mr. Tyler handed her a piece of paper. Your test, I thought you needed to see it. Sydney, I'm worried about you. Mr. Tyler said, keep this up and you won't graduate. Sydney looked down at the test. There was a big, red F on the corner. But, when did I take this? Sydney asked. It was her handwriting, there was no question about that, but she couldn't remember taking it. Last Tuesday. Mr. Tyler said I need to get to class, we can talk later. He walked off. Ouch. Chloe said. I didn't even take this stupid test. Sydney said, waving it in Chloe's face. How could I fail something I didn't take? Wait, Chloe said, did you take the test during the class period you pooped your pull-up and had to go back to diapers? Sydney stopped and blushed. Well, I guess. So as a baby you failed your potty training, but as a teenager you failed your test. Chloe said, we already know that some things are connected between the two realities, why not take it a step further and say everything has an equivalent? That's not much of a stretch. Evan said. So our potty training abilities reflect how good we are at school. Mia concluded. Sydney sighed again. Chloe and Evan were the top of the class, Mia got good enough grades, but she barely scraped by, if that. That would actually explain why she kept having accidents in her diapers. So do you know why the reality keeps expanding? She asked, changing the subject. Not exactly. Evan said, I think the meteor warped reality somehow when it hit. I couldn't tell you why though, or why we're the only ones who can tell something's happening. It's probably chance as much as anything. But the other reality will only get bigger. Chloe asked. I think so. How big will it get? Evan frowned. That's the million-dollar question. Some of the sections will probably get huge, big enough to cover an entire block or more. They don't seem to be slowing down. I'm already a baby in 2/3 of my house. Sydney said, and I need to wear diapers unlike the rest of you. You're telling me it will only get worse? Yeah. Probably. Evan said. But there have to be others. Mia said, people like us who realize what's going on. They can explain the situation to everyone else. But not enough. Chloe said, most of them will probably keep quiet, the ones who make a big deal out of it will be labeled psychotic. And anyone under the age of 25 who says something won't be taken seriously. My mom thought I was playing pretend when I tried to tell her that I was potty trained and didn't need pull-ups. Wait, have you never had an accident? Sydney asked. No, Chloe said. Even at night. My mom makes me wear diapers but I've never peed in them. Same here. Evan said. And me. Mia said. Sydney groaned. Come on, why is it always me? Chloe looked at her. I know you had the one accident but have dash. I poop my diapers, okay? I pee and poop in my diapers and I can't help it. Every time I try to make it to the potty but I almost never do. I just don't get it, it's like I suddenly panic and forget what I'm supposed to be doing and just use my pants. So it's like you're thinking like a baby? Evan asked. Sydney thought about it for a moment. I guess. I mean, I just felt really secure when my mom put me back in diapers. I knew I was supposed to feel upset but I didn't. You're more comfortable using a diaper than a toilet. Sydney nodded and, not just when I'm wearing a diaper. Hi. It's just, nothing. Sydney said. She didn't want to admit that even as a teenager, she had begun feeling like she should just go potty in her pants. Oh, by the way, my family's going on a road trip to my cousin's this weekend. Mia said, hopefully I'll be able to do some research. See if the same thing's happening elsewhere, that sort of thing. Really? That could be really helpful. Evan said. Yeah, I'll be back Monday, I'll let you know what I find then. Great. Chloe said. She checked her watch. I'd better get to class, see you later. Yeah, later. Sydney took a side route to get to class, straight through the other reality. She was barely 10 feet in when she felt the urge to go. Getting to a potty didn't even occur to her. Sydney squatted and sighed. She'd barely begun pushing when she felt the familiar feeling of warm mush filling her pants. It was getting easier and easier to use her diapers on command. At this point, anytime she got in position, her body pretty much just did the rest. Sydney stood up and patted the seat of her diaper. It was pretty full, she hadn't even realized how badly she'd needed to go. Had her potty training really regressed that much? The thought didn't make her afraid or upset, if anything she was happy to need diapers. It smells like Sydney pooped herself again. Sydney turned and saw two boys snickering and pointing. They were clearly in pull ups themselves, but it wasn't like pointing it out would embarrass them. Especially not when she herself had a stinky diaper between her legs. I didn't poop. One of you probably just farted. Sydney retorted, crossing her arms. Two fingers pulled back the back waistband of her diaper. Oh, Sydney, you made a mess. Mr. Tyler said from behind her. Sydney turned beet red. Let's get you changed before you get a rash. He said, taking her arm and leading her away. The two boys were on the floor laughing. You didn't have to tell them I had an accident. Sydney said as soon as they were out of earshot. Mr. Tyler lay her on the floor. I wouldn't need to tell them you pooped yourself if you tried to get to the potty. I did try to make it to the potty. Sydney said. I couldn't hold it. Sydney, I saw you squatting. Mr. Tyler said as he wiped her butt. You didn't look like you were trying. You looked like you decided to use your diaper like a baby instead of the potty like a big girl. Humph, Sydney muttered around her pacifier. Sydney, you need to at least make an effort in your potty training. Mr. Tyler said. Do you want to stay in diapers forever? Sydney sighed and looked away. Of course she didn't want to stay in diapers forever, but she didn't want to potty train yet. Why couldn't everyone else her age just wear diapers? Then no one would care and she could just enjoy herself. Mr. Tyler finished changing her and patted her diaper. Sydney, I hope you're listening. I am. I am. Sydney said. Mr. Tyler smiled. Good. I'll walk you to class. Don't worry, I won't tell why you were late. Thanks. Sydney said. Mr. Tyler led her out of the other reality. Sydney sighed, dragging a little as her diaper shrank into a pull-up. She stared at the little flower designs on the front until her pants formed over them. Sydney? Mr. Tyler asked. Coming. Sydney said, taking the last few steps and feeling herself return to panties. She walked into her class. It's my fault she's late. Mr. Tyler explained to her teacher. I was discussing a problem with her. You mean changing my diaper? Sydney corrected under her breath. Packing for the road trip was pretty normal for Mia, with the exception of her mother double-checking to make sure she had enough pull UPS. She wasn't expecting anything strange to happen on the trip, or at least nothing stranger than had been happening, but they were barely out of town when Mia's pants suddenly puffed out. Hi? She asked. She pulled her pants down a little to check. There were tapes on either side of her undergarment. She was wearing a diaper. Mia gasped as the car seat elongated and stretched around her. Straps appeared across her chest, securing her nice and tight. She sat there in surprise, feeling her new baby seat. Something wrong, honey? Mia's mother asked. No, nothing, Mia said, still trying to comprehend what had just happened. She patted her well-padded crotch. Actually, why am I wearing diapers? I know you're embarrassed, honey, but it's just for the car ride. Mia's mother said we can't make potty stops very often, so if you need to go potty, just use your pants. I promise you can go back to pull UPS as soon as we get there. Mia was still nervous about the reality shift, but the fact that her parents still perceived her as older was good. She lay back and tried to relax for the rest of the ride. When they got to her cousin's house, Mia unbuckled herself with some effort and climbed out of the car. As soon as her feet touched the driveway, her outfit began changing again, twisting and pulling, and suddenly she was in just a loose t-shirt and her diaper. What happened, Tommy? She asked in panic. She didn't have any time to think about it though. Suddenly the urge to pee hit her. I potty, she said. Her mother reacted surprisingly quickly. She pulled a training potty out of nowhere and slid it under Mia. She pulled her diaper down and pushed her gently onto the potty. Mia didn't really understand what happened, but she lost control a second later. Mia sighed, feeling herself pee in the potty. That had been close. Wow. Nice job, Buttercup. Her mother said. Mia glowed proudly. Of course she'd done a nice job. She wasn't going to pee her diaper like some baby. She didn't even notice that her diaper was wet from the multiple wettings she'd had while asleep on the ride. Nor did she think much of using a training potty on the driveway in broad daylight or her mother changing her back into a pull-up before they went inside. Her mother plopped her in a playpen in the middle of the living room as soon as they got inside. Her cousins, Ellie and James, were sitting a short distance away. They were both dressed as babies and drooling on themselves. Mia looked at her cousins. Hi. Pfft. Ellie blew a spit bubble. James sucked his pacifier and looked around with wide, curious eyes. Mia frowned and crawled over to them. They weren't exactly shy about their diapers, so Mia was able to pull back their waistbands without protest. They'd both pooped. Why are you babies? Mia wondered out loud. Ellie was 3 years older than her and James was 4. If anything, they should have been kids running around in underwear, not drooling diaper babies. We'll get the room set up. Mia's dad said. Can you watch Mia? Sure. Her uncle said. Mia's parents left. I didn't know you could potty train someone so young. Mia's aunt commented. I mean, maybe at 23 or 24 at the earliest, but before even 20. She's not really potty trained. Her uncle explained. I've seen what they call potty training. They recognize when she's about to use her pants and switch her diaper for a training potty just before she goes. She can't even hold it, she just kind of knows she's doing it. Not true. Mia protested. She'd never actually used her diaper. Here, I don't want to deal with her leaking all over. Her uncle said, pulling out a diaper. We'll just tell my sister that she had an accident in her pull-up. No. Mia said, trying to scramble away from the diaper, but her arms and legs were surprisingly uncoordinated. She stumbled and fell on all fours. Her uncle calmly pulled her onto a changing mat and pulled off her pull-up and taped the diaper around her waist. Mia tried to get to her feet but she was barely able to squat without falling over. She grunted in frustration, babbling to herself, completely unaware of just how much like a toddler she looked. After the third try, Mia was adjusting herself when she became aware of a weight in the back of her diaper. She put a hand on her butt. It wasn't possible but, she'd just pooped herself without even noticing. See? Uncle Tony said she's just a dumb baby. She can't do anything but poop her diapers and drool. Dumb baby. The words seemed to ring in Mia's ears. She cringed and looked at Uncle Tony, who was looking straight at her and pointing. There, she's drooling. Does that look like a child ready for potty training? Stove, Mia said, putting up her hands to try to shield herself from whatever her uncle was doing to her. It was like he was changing her to what he thought she was supposed to be. No, but she's still so cute, even if she did just make a present in her pants for us. With Aunt Ira's comment, Mia's sphincter muscles went numb. She gargled in panic but she was no longer potty trained. Warm mush filled the seat of her diaper. Let's change your diapers, you little stinker. Mia put her thumb in her mouth and began sucking. Gabra-boo. She gurgled. It was the best she could do, her mouth had gone numb too. She lay there passively, letting her aunt change her diaper and then return her to the playpen. Mia looked down at the thick diaper between her legs. She couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, she couldn't make it to the potty. What did that make her? Maybe she was just a baby pretending to be big. Pway. Ellie offered her a doll. Mia broke. Goo. She cooed, completely oblivious that she was wetting herself. Monday at school, Sydney was at her locker when Chloe walked up to her. She was frowning. What's wrong? Sydney asked. I haven't heard anything from Mia all weekend. Chloe said I just hope she's alright. I'm sure she's fine. She probably just doesn't have a cell phone. Sydney shrugged. But she should have gotten access to one again once she came back last night. Chloe said it's just what's wrong? Sydney pointed down the hall. Chloe looked and almost didn't recognize who it was. Mia was in a wheelchair, her thumb in her mouth, her expression blank. She was wearing a plain t-shirt and sweatpants. They didn't need to ask to know that she had a diaper on underneath. No way. Chloe said what could have happened to her? She was fine just 2 days ago. Maybe the other reality is a lot stronger in other places. Sydney suggested. Mia? Can you understand me? Chloe asked. The woman smiled. Oh, do you know her? Say hi Mia. Gabagoo. Mia waved happily, taking her drool-soaked thumb out of her mouth for a moment. She showed no recognition of the others. Yeah, I work with her sometimes. Chloe said. She glanced at the bag on the woman's shoulder. There was a baby bottle sticking out and some pacifiers too. It looked a lot like a diaper bag. You mean you babysit? The woman asked jokingly. I think she's a little too young to work. Exactly. Chloe grinned weakly, having absolutely no idea which reality she was in. The woman turned to Sydney. Dearie, I think you need a diaper change. Why don't you come with me? Sydney turned beet red. It was true she'd pooped her diaper in the other reality a few minutes ago but, how could the woman tell? She was wearing panties right now. Can you take your friend into class? The woman asked, taking Sydney's hand. I need to change her diaper. It's all right. Sydney said quickly. I actually do, need a change. Chloe glanced at Sydney's butt as though she was expecting to see a diaper. Both girls blushed and Chloe nodded and took the stroller. All right. She said, pushing Mia into the classroom. Now for you. The woman turned to Sydney and took her to the downstairs bathroom. Sydney's butt crinkled and puffed out. Inside the classroom, Chloe wheeled Mia in between seats to her desk. No one acted as though it was strange. Okay, Chloe looked at Mia, unsure what to do. Mia got up and stumbled into her desk happily. As soon as she sat down the desk warped and was suddenly a baby walker. Chloe blinked and then tried to ignore it, taking a seat at her desk. Mia turned her attention to another classmate, Ollie, who was standing within arm's reach. Aga boo. Mia drooled. She grabbed Ollie's arm. That's nice Mia. Ollie said, gently trying to get her to let go. Her outfit wrinkled and began to change color. Goo. Goo. Mia insisted. Ollie's transformation sped up. Her butt puffed out as she went from underwear to diapers like Mia. She grabbed hold of a nearby desk as she went pigeon-toed, walking without support too much for her. Urgh. Ollie grunted, her knees bending. Chloe could see her exposed diaper push out a little. How are you today? Another girl in the class, Carrie asked Ollie as though the other girl wasn't in the process of pooping her diaper. Ga booped. Ollie said, touching Carrie and transforming her too. 10 seconds later Carrie lost her balance and fell on the floor, the only clothes she had on were a t-shirt and a thick, disposable diaper around her waist. Chloe watched the alternate reality spread across the classroom towards her, one by one turning her classmates into diapered babies. Most of the desks disappeared under the students, leaving them crawling and crinkling on the floor in their new diapers. A couple turned into baby bouncers and walkers, ensnaring a gurgling, baby-fied student. Chloe abandoned her desk as it twisted and turned into a baby swing. "Ms. Holland?" Chloe asked, looking to their teacher. Ms. Holland looked around the room blankly, unsure of what to do. Ms. Holland's outfit changed into a t-shirt and overalls as she continued to look more and more confused. She stuck her thumb in her mouth and began sucking. "Ms. Holland," Chloe said, desperately looking for help as she hugged the wall, trying to avoid contact with the rapidly increasing number of babies. "Sorry, I made pee-pee," Ms. Holland said aloud to no one in particular. "Pee-pee?" Chloe asked. Ms. Holland was a pretty young teacher, only 1 or 2 years out of college herself, but seeing her go back to pull UPS really shocked Chloe. If 25 meant wearing pull UPS, then what did 19 mean? Mr. Tyler walked into the room holding a clipboard. He ruffled Ms. Holland's hair. "Thanks for looking after the babies while I was gone, Franny," he said. "MMPH, Ms. Holland murmured. "Did you wet yourself again?" Ms. Holland nodded. "Okay, well there are no toilets nearby, so I'm going to change you into a diaper for now. If you need to go, you can just use your pants." Ms. Holland didn't put up any resistance while Mr. Tyler pulled her overalls off and then her sagging pull-up. Chloe shielded her eyes, trying to give her teacher a little bit of decency while she was changed into a diaper, even though she was the only one in the room that cared. Evan and Sydney arrived at Chloe's house after school. "Where's Mia?" Evan asked. "My room," Chloe said, "but we need to walk through the alternate reality." "That's fine," Evan said. "Lead the way." Sydney watched her friends' butts crinkle a little as they went to pull UPS while she had a full baby diaper wrap around her waist. Her stomach gurgled. "Not again," Sydney groaned, clutching her stomach. She had asked her mother to change her before coming here. "Sydney, are you?" "Yes," Sydney said, squatting in the middle of the hall. Her diaper crinkled and pushed out a little. "There's no need to watch," Sydney said to the other two, who quickly turned away to give Sydney some privacy while she pooped her diaper. They entered Chloe's room and returned to normal. Mia was sitting on the floor gurgling. Evan sniffed the air. "I can still smell it," Evan said, looking at Sydney's butt as though she was still wearing a diaper. "I can't," Chloe said. "Neither can I," Sydney said, though she didn't mention that she couldn't smell poopy diapers anymore. "Can you just sit away from me?" Evan asked. "Sorry, it's really strong." "Yeah, sure," Sydney said, going to join Chloe. "So, Mia," Chloe said. The 3 teens looked down at their bobby-fied friend. Mia sucked on a bottle softly. "Do people think of her as special needs in this reality?" Evan asked. "Kind of," Chloe said. "I think they think of her more as a late bloomer. Like, they think she'll grow up eventually. Right. Her mom seems to be getting ready to potty train her. So, she's in the other reality. Permanently," Sydney said. "That's what it seems like," Evan said. "And how do we explain that?" Chloe asked. Sydney thought about it. "So up until now we've been assuming that this is isolated to around here, right? That everywhere else in the world is normal. Yeah. What if it's actually the opposite? What if here is where the effect is weakest?" There was a long silence. Mia took her empty bottle out of her mouth, drool strands coming from her chin. She lay back and stuck her toes in her mouth and sucked on them instead. "Is that possible?" Chloe asked. "Astronomically, I mean." Evan thought about it. "About here is where the meteor would have hit directly. If it splintered, yeah, I guess it is. So we're completely surrounded by zones and the ones in town are getting bigger," Sydney said. "Which means?" "Don't think like that," Chloe said quickly. "What?" "It's true. We're not talking about this now," Evan said. "Chloe, you said there was something else you were worried about." "Huh? Oh, right. It seemed like Mia was changing things. Like, she'd stare at someone long enough and they'd become a baby. Did she do that to you?" "No, it didn't seem to work on me. Touch did though." "Huh?" Evan scratched his head. "So let's weigh our options here." They talked for a while but ultimately didn't get anywhere. All 3 of them knew that there wasn't anything they could do, but they didn't want to admit that. Sydney waved goodbye to the other 2 and started walking home. She couldn't get the idea that Mia had actually had control over the 2 realities out of her head. What if she could make herself a baby so she didn't have to take a test or something? At least that's why she told herself she was interested. Staring at things, huh? Sydney wondered to herself. She looked across the street. There was a girl, maybe in her early teens, walking with a backpack on. Sydney looked at her and tried to imagine a diaper popping out from under her skirt. Nothing happened. Oh well. Sydney muttered to herself, girl belongs in diapers at least. The girl stopped and looked around, confused. Sydney raised an eyebrow. What's she doing? She wondered out loud. The girl squatted. Sydney got a view of her panties. Except they weren't panties, the girl had a thick diaper wrapped around her waist. Did I? Sydney asked, watching as the girl took off her backpack and set it beside her. A pacifier had appeared in her mouth and her entire outfit was much more infantile. She wrapped her hands around her legs and really strained. Sydney could see her diaper push out a little. A woman who hadn't been there a couple minutes before came up from behind the girl. Elena, did you have an accident? The woman asked. Elena nodded. The woman lifted up Elena's skirt and pulled back her diaper. Phew, you really needed to go, didn't you? Elena stood up and sucked on her pacifier absent-mindedly, like diapers were a normal part of life. The woman picked up the backpack. Thanks for holding your diaper bag, Elena. The woman said, now let's get you changed. Elena lay back on the grass and let the woman undo the tapes of her diaper on the edge of the sidewalk. Sydney didn't stay and wait to watch the diaper change happen, she walked quickly away, pretending like she hadn't done anything. The next day Sydney barely got through 5 minutes of Mr. Tyler's class before she had a messy accident. She sighed and looked from herself over to Chloe, who was sitting on the training potty with her pull-up around her ankles. Sydney scowled. Chloe was always better than her. Well, not this time. Chloe wasn't using a potty, she was having an accident in her diaper like a big baby. Chloe grunted, trying to poop. Doing it in front of everyone hadn't gotten any easier. It was a few seconds before her training potty changed enough for her to notice. Hi? Chloe asked, feeling herself sink a little so her mess was touching her bottom. Chloe stood up in panic. The training potty stuck to her butt, taped between her legs, more soft padding than hard plastic. And no. I made it to the potty. Chloe said, swinging her butt from side to side as though trying to shake it off. Sydney grinned, really focusing on Chloe's butt, giving her a baby diaper with multiple tapes on each side. Chloe stumbled and fell, her diaper too thick for her to walk properly. She grimaced as she kept going potty, unable to stop, forced to mess her diaper like a real baby. Sydney looked around the classroom, doing the same to the rest of her classmates. Most of them gave no indication of their thickening diapers, though a few stumbled and fell on their heavily padded rears like Chloe had. Sydney grinned. Perfect. Now no one could make fun of her for wearing diapers because they all wore diapers too. The icing on the cake was Mr. Tyler walking over to Chloe and pulling back the waistband of her diaper. Oh, looks like you went poo. He commented. I went in the potty, Chloe said. Nope, sorry but you went in your diaper. That's all right though, let's get you changed. Chloe was bright red while she got her messy butt wiped in the middle of the room. It didn't matter that no one else cared, she wasn't supposed to need diaper changes like some overgrown baby. She whimpered and stuck her thumb in her mouth. It was instinctive for her, it didn't even occur to her how infantile she seemed. There. Mr. Tyler said, patting Chloe on the head, doesn't it feel so much better to be out of that icky, poopy diaper? Chloe nodded and sucked her thumb. The same thing happened the next day in Mr. Tyler's class and the day after too. Chloe couldn't understand it, in all her other classes she could keep her pull-ups dry no problem, but in Mr. Tyler's class she always became a full-blown baby. It got to the point where she couldn't even walk. She never suspected Sydney, though she was a little annoyed that the girl was now the most mature one in that class. About a week after the first incident, Chloe only got 3 steps into the classroom before legs shook under her. Her arms went out to her sides as she tried to regain balance but couldn't. She fell on her hands and knees. Sydney laughed nearby, looking down at her, standing effortlessly. Chloe's fists clenched in frustration. You think this is funny? Chloe asked as struggled to stand, getting to her feet only because she used a table for support. Well, at least I'm not the only one in diapers anymore. Sydney said gleefully, patting Chloe's diaper. Even Miss Perfect is a little potty pants baby. You're really going to be this competitive, aren't you? Chloe snapped, swatting Sydney's hand away. Well, guess what? Mommy says that I'm almost ready for big girl pants. Yeah, right. You're never going to potty train. You're going to be a diaper baby forever. Chloe sniffed, her eyes becoming moist. Her bottom lip trembled. Way. Chloe began wailing at the top of her lungs, tears running down her cheeks. Mr. Tyler suddenly had her in his arms, rocking and cooing to her to try to get her to calm down. Easy there. He said softly, I'll bet you're just hungry, aren't you? And no. I am MPH. Chloe found a bottle being pushed into mouth. Her crying stopped as she suckled curiously. She seems like quite the handful. A female voice said. Chloe turned her head as she continued to feed and saw Ms. Edwards. I think she's just a little developmentally behind. Mr. Tyler said. Chloe's eyes widened. Her? Developmentally behind? She was the top of her class. Do you think we should recommend she be held back a year? Probably. A little more time in daycare would be good for her. I don't think she'll even meet the potty training requirement though. Most of the kids can make it to the potty every now and then and she hasn't even tried. MMMPH. Chloe squirmed in protest. Hadn't tried? Up until the week before she had been the only one who'd never had an accident in her diaper. Sydney had to turn away to hide her laughter. After class, Chloe made sure to be the first one out of the classroom. She couldn't escape diapers fast enough. She sighed and waited for Sydney to cross the line where the reality changed, watching the other students' diapers shrink into pull-ups and then regular underwear and their outfits lengthen into pants or long skirts instead of the elastic shorts or mini baby skirts. Except as Sydney toddled out of the classroom, nothing happened. She stopped and looked from herself to the line and back to herself. Then she smiled. Sydney? Chloe asked. I baby. Sydney asked, grinning from ear to ear. I baby. Don't worry. I'll help you. Chloe took Sydney's arm and pulled her to where she knew Evan would be. Evan took one look at Sydney and winced. Don't tell me. She's not changing back. Chloe said. Sydney squatted and sighed. Chloe tugged at her arm. No, Sydney, this isn't a time to use your diaper. We'll go to the potty, okay? Sydney didn't budge. But I need to poo. Yes, but Sydney, you poop in toilets, not your pants. No. Sydney, you dash. I know can poo on potty. I know how. Of course you do, Sydney. Evan said you've done it plenty of times before. Sydney gave him a blank stare. I know wememba. She stuck her thumb in her mouth and sucked. She seemed to strain for a moment and then sighed again. I need new diaper. Come on, Sydney, you're not a baby. Evan said. I weo and poo diapers. Sydney said maybe I happy if I accept. No, you're not accepting it. Evan said. Sydney ignored him and sucked her thumb. Evan looked to Chloe for help. I guess I do have one idea, she said. I was doing some calculations. Chloe explained while Evan pushed a drooling Sydney outside in a wheelchair like it was a stroller. If the new reality continues to expand the way they has been, then the last spot it will reach is right under where the meteor hit. That's in a field over by the edge of town. So this is the most pure spot, so to speak. Hypothetically. I guess we'll see. I was planning on trying it with Mia first, but, well, I guess now's as good a time as any. They took the last few steps. Sydney looked around curiously, not changing. Sydney? Can you understand me? Evan asked. Sydney gurgled and smiled, just happy to get attention. Pwetty. Come on, Sydney, you're not a baby. Chloe said. She stared at Sydney's diaper and imagined it shrinking. To her surprise, it turned into a pull-up. Jeans formed over Sydney's legs and the rest of her outfit changed back to being older too. She blinked, her smile gone. What did you do? She asked. Sydney. You're back. Evan exclaimed. Sydney shook her head. You really shouldn't have brought me back to this reality. Sydney said. Evan stopped. What? Sydney sighed in irritation. Okay, let me spell this out for you nice and clear. I want to be a baby. Hi. Chloe asked. Look, right now I'm having a lot of trouble with school. Something I know you could never understand. She shot Chloe a look. I've made a lot of mistakes, I feel like I can't do anything. Then this comes along. I see this as an opportunity, I get to start over. I thought that maybe I could help you fight it at first, but, well, look at Mia. She got sucked into the new reality after just 2 days. If the pull is that strong, well, I figure I'll just take it. You want to be a baby? You want to poop in diapers and drool and crawl around on the floor? Evan asked. Yes. Evan and Chloe looked at each other. Sydney could tell that they wouldn't understand. Fine. She said, you get your reality, I get mine. Sydney looked down at herself and imagined herself in diapers. It was getting easy for her to manipulate things into the other reality. She giggled as her pants puffed out, thick padding on underneath. I got's a diaper. She announced. Sydney, no. Evan said, you aren't supposed to be a baby. Without knowing what he was doing, Evan made Sydney's undergarments change back into panties. Sydney scowled. They were as bad as her mother for trying to potty train her. She'd show them. She'd make them babies too. No. You diaper. Sydney said, looking at Evan's pants. They changed from being jeans to elastic play shorts. He had a clear diaper bulge. Diaper? Evan asked in confusion, looking at his butt even while the rest of his clothes changed to just a t-shirt and shorts. He didn't even have any shoes on, his bare feet squelched in the mud. Poo. Sydney said, pointing at Evan's well-padded crotch. There were some muffled farts as Evan was forced to fill his diaper on command. MMMPH. He grunted, sticking his thumb in his mouth. He sat in the mud, getting his clothes all dirty, but he didn't care. He grinned and stuck his hands in the dirt, playing with it. You've been turning me into a baby this entire time. Chloe exclaimed, finally realizing why her reality had been getting messed up at school. Diaper. Chloe didn't even get any clothes, she was left standing there in just a giant, disposable diaper. Her legs shook and she went down on all fours. You poopy head. Chloe said. Poo. Sydney demanded, staring intently at Chloe's diaper. No. Chloe said. Unlike Evan, she was strong enough to resist Sydney a little. Sydney put her hand on Chloe's diaper. Chloe felt something hot and mushy enter the seat of her diaper. Her bottom lip trembled. Way! She cried, slapping her hands into the wet ground in frustration. Mud splattered all over her bare skin. You know, maybe it wasn't the best idea to bring them here after it had just rained. A voice said. Chloe looked up. Mommy? She asked. What was her mother doing here? How did she even know they were going to come here? And no look. Chloe said, trying to cover her exposed chest. Her mother took 2 steps and pulled back the waistband of her diaper. Chloe eeped. Looks like my little baby's messy on the inside and outside of her pampers. Chloe's mother declared. Mommy. Chloe said. Did her mother not understand basic privacy? She couldn't just give her diaper checks. Let's get you changed. Chloe's mother said. Chloe turned bright red at the idea of a public diaper change. Sydney snickered. Well, someone's a happy baby. Another nearby woman commented. Sydney blew a spit bubble. Mommy. She giggled. Mommy? Chloe looked from at the other woman. That was Sydney's mother? And the other woman she saw next to her, that was probably Evan's mother. Had the reality shift changed the location of where their mothers were? Her mother lay her back on a picnic blanket that hadn't been there 2 minutes ago and held up a clean diaper. No mommy, I know baby. Chloe said I no need diaper. I know that sweetie. Chloe's mother said the diapers are just for the picnic, remember? Sydney gurgled and pointed. You can try potty training sometime, but that's not for a few years sweetie. Chloe's mother corrected herself, you're just not ready. Chloe shot Sydney a look while her mother wiped her butt clean. Sydney stuck her tongue out at her. Poo baby. Chloe opened her mouth to respond and a pacifier appeared between her teeth, forcing her to suckle and silencing her. Sydney's so mature for her age. Sydney's mother said I think she can actually control her bowels, it's just she doesn't understand the concept of a potty yet. Sydney grinned. She never had this much praise heaped on her. It made her so full of energy that she stood up and started to toddle around. That only impressed the adults even more. She can even walk? Wow. Evan's mother said. At such a young age too. Chloe's mother added. Chloe scowled. She could walk too. Her mother finished her diaper change and she immediately pushed herself up. Except she didn't stand, she lost her balance on the way up and fell back down onto her butt. Let me give you some help, sweetie. Her mother said. Chloe's mother took her hands and pulled them up, letting Chloe use them for support. It took all of Chloe's might to pull herself up into a standing position. Her mother slowly took her hands away. Chloe grinned, standing shakily. She had done it. She had really done it. Wow Chloe, good job. Her mother praised. Chloe's chest swelled with pride. She took a step forwards. And then she slipped and went down hard in the mud. Way! Chloe wailed. Good twi. Sydney giggled. That's a good girl Sydney. Her mother said. Chloe cried harder, knowing that Sydney was just making fun of her. Her mother took her in her arms and rubbed a towel against her, cleaning the mud off her. Chloe whined and squirmed the entire time. She wasn't a baby. She wasn't supposed to need diapers and she wasn't supposed to need her mother to do everything for her. Chloe and Evan were forced to sit through almost an hour of picnic with Sydney as babbling babies. It was only after the 3 mothers went to their own houses that Chloe and Evan were slowly able to go back to the original reality. It took a long time, hours just to get out of diapers, but they both were back to full UPS by the time they went to bed. Somehow that made them proud, that they didn't need to wear diapers, even though they knew they should have been in regular underwear. The next morning, Chloe's mother woke her up. She had clothes all laid out of her already. Chloe sighed as she realized that her mother was going to dress her. She pulled down her pajama pants and then her dry pull-up and looked at her mother. Chloe's mother held out another pull-up. It took Chloe a moment to realize her mother expected her to step into it. But Mom, I've never had to wear pull UPS during the day before. Chloe said. She was in the original reality, wasn't she? Her bed still looked normal and everything. Honey, you're barely out of diapers. Her mother said you need more time before you can move up to big girl underwear. But Chloe pointed at the pull-up she had just taken off. Except it wasn't a pull-up. It was a baby diaper, and it looked wet. Do you want to wear a diaper? Chloe's mother asked. That made Chloe step into the pull-up really quickly. It was only as her mother pulled jeans onto her that Chloe realized that her mother hadn't actually been serious about her wearing a diaper, she had just said it to get her to do what she wanted. Chloe sighed as she realized she had completely fallen for such a simple parenting tactic. Chloe's mother led her downstairs and tied a bib around her neck. Chloe wasn't thrilled about it, but she was glad that she at least didn't need her high chair anymore. She would be an adult in no time. You want cereal? Her mother asked. Sure. Chloe shrugged. Her mother poured cereal into a bowl and brought it over to the table. Chloe looked at it. Mom, I don't like it dry. Chloe said. Her mother unbuttoned her shirt. Instantly Chloe regretted saying anything. Mom, no, it's all right. She said, but it was too late. Her mother squeezed her breast, squirting breast milk into the bowl. She left her shirt open and her breasts exposed while she picked up a spoon. Come on sweetie, eat it while the milk is still warm. Chloe's mother said, pushing a spoonful at Chloe's face. Chloe recoiled. No, Mom, please. I am MPH. Chloe's mother took advantage of her open mouth to stick the spoon in her mouth. Chloe sputtered. About half of it went down her throat and the other half ended up on her bib. Mom. Sto MMPH. I'm not a bab MMM. Her mother ignored her and continued pushing spoonful after spoonful into Chloe's mouth whenever she opened it wide enough. With someone feeding her, it was almost impossible not to get milk all over her chin and bib. After what seemed like forever, the bowl was emptied. Chloe's mother patted her on the back. Chloe let out the biggest belch she had ever heard in her life. She blushed deep red. Had she just really been burped? Like she was some toddler? Can I go to school now? She begged, just wanting to end the humiliation. Not yet, you need to go potty, remember? I don't need to go. Chloe insisted. You need to try. Chloe's mother said. Chloe sighed. Fine. She walked to the bathroom. Her mother walked with her. I don't need help. Chloe said. I know, I just want to watch. Chloe's mother said, clearly believing that Chloe needed to be supervised when she went potty. Mom, you're embarrassing me. Chloe said. She sounded like a whiny toddler and she knew it. Please just try, honey. Chloe grimaced, pulling down her pants and then her pull-up, painfully aware of her mother's eyes. She sat on the toilet. I don't need to go. She said. You can't know after just 2 seconds, Chloe. Chloe grimaced again. She wasn't very good at fooling her mother. She sighed and pushed. To her complete surprise, there was a splash. Hi. Chloe looked down in surprise. Had she just pooped? She had barely felt it. Good job, sweetie. Her mother praised. Chloe blushed, but somehow she felt a twinge of pride too. She pushed again and there was another splash under her. She pushed again and nothing happened. All done. She announced. Her mother broke off toilet paper and wiped her and flushed, then helped Chloe back into her clothes. Chloe didn't know why she let her mother do things that she should have been able to do herself, but it seemed normal so she didn't think too much of it. Now let's get you to school. Her mother said. I'm leaving now. Evan called, walking towards the door. It had been an uneventful morning so far, no diapers, no pacifiers, no baby talk. Hang on a second. I still need to find my purse. Evan's mother said, running after him. Hi. Evan said, you aren't coming, are you? His mother sniffed the air and looked at him. Oh, Evan. His mother said. What? What? Evan asked. I just changed you. His mother said, fanning the air. Wait, what? Evan's mother pulled back his pants. Phew, looks like you definitely did a big boom boom. What? Evan asked. He took a moment to check. Yeah, he was wearing jeans and regular boxers. Why was his mother giving him a diaper check? We'd better get your stinky bottom changed. His mother said, pushing into his butt. There was a distinct squishy feeling. Hi. Evan asked. He checked again. He was wearing just a thick baby diaper on his lower half. He wasn't moving, but every comment his mother made about him was coming true. Oh, that was a stinky fart. His mother said, why don't you finish going poopy before your change? But I didn't fart. Evan said, and I don't need to poopy. But even as he said it, his legs bent and he squatted. He felt pressure and movement in his bowels, telling him that it was already too late to get to the toilet. He said, feeling his bowels contract and empty into his diaper. Now let's get you changed. Evan was bright red. His mother had just watched him poop his pants and now she wanted to clean him up. Unlike Chloe, he couldn't remember the picnic very well, he had been too regressed. Mom, I can do it myself. Evan said. Of course you can. his mother said, pulling a clean diaper out of her purse. Evan waved his hands. Mom, I'm serious. Oh. Evan doubled over as he got a cramp. His body squatted again and suddenly he found himself making another mess in his already dirty diaper. Phew. You really need to go this morning. His mother commented, are you done? Evan grunted and had one last messy fart. Why yes. Good. Now just lie back here. Evan was bright red as he was laid on his back right in front of the door and his mother broke the tapes on his diaper. What if someone came to the door and saw? He was 18 years old, he shouldn't have needed diapers in the first place, and even if he had, he should have been able to wipe his own butt at least. The diaper change couldn't end quickly enough. When it was done, Evan jumped up and quickly checked out the window. It didn't look like anyone had seen. Can you go in the potty? Evan's mother asked. What? Evan asked. You must need to pee, can you do it in the potty? Evan looked at her. Didn't you potty train a baby to poop in the toilet before you trained them to pee? So, if he was regressed enough to poop his diapers, how could he still have bladder control? Sure. Evan said. He walked to the bathroom. His mother followed him. I don't need help. He said, already knowing what the answer would be. I just want to watch. His mother said. She pulled down his diaper for him. Evan sighed and sat on the toilet so that at least he had a little cover. Try doing it while standing up. His mother encouraged. As though it wasn't hard enough already with his mother standing there watching. Evan stood up and turned, trying to coax himself to pee. His mother seemed to take it as he was nervous to use the potty. It's all right, I'm here. Everything is all right. She said, rubbing his back like that would help. Pretend like you're wearing your diaper. Evan sighed and closed his eyes. He managed to get a stream going. He grinned and opened his eyes, only to see that he was missing the toilet. He hastily corrected himself, but not before he had made a puddle on the floor. Whoops. His mother declared, try to remember to aim next time. Good job peeing out of your diaper though. Evan blushed deep red as his mother pulled up his diaper and then got a wad of toilet paper to clean the floor. How could he have forgotten something so simple? He was potty trained, wasn't he? He was 18, almost in college. But even while he thought it, his bladder released, apparently not having been fully emptied, and he wet his diaper. Evan met Chloe in one of the empty hallways before school started. The place was barely recognizable as a high school anymore. Only a few teens were even wearing full UPS, the vast majority had thick, crinkling diapers taped around their waists. Clothing consisted mostly of sleepers and t-shirts, a couple teens weren't even wearing anything aside from their diapers. A couple still had cell phones or computers, but those objects seemed to quickly turn into stuffed animals and other baby toys in the new reality. As for Evan, his upper half was that of a teenager, with his headphones around his neck, but the only thing he had on below his waist was a thick, disposable diaper. Chloe had the opposite problem as him. Her hair was in pigtails and she had a pacifier in her mouth, except the rest of her was dressed like a normal 18-year-old, though she did have a pull-up on under her jeans. Sydney's managed to do a lot of damage. Chloe muttered around her pacifier, a lot of students are permanent babies. I've noticed. Evan said, looks like most of the school is a full-time nursery too. You know, I was thinking, shouldn't we be able to change it back? I mean, we hypothetically have some control over the two realities too, don't we? We do, but I think it's a lot easier to change things to the baby reality than it is to change them back. I turned a cup into a baby bottle in 20 seconds last night, but it took me 5 minutes and a lot of focus to just make it a sippy cup. Chloe sighed. Well, it looks like we're about halfway in between the two realities. My mom fed me cereal this morning, but she used, her milk. Same here. Evan said, I mean, not with the milk, but I, mess myself, but I can still control peeing. He sniffed. Speaking of which, what's that smell? Evan said, fanning the air. I thought there weren't any babies around here. Chloe glanced at his diaper. Evan looked down. No way. He pushed a hand into the seat of his diaper. Come on, this is the third time this morning that I've needed a diaper change. Can you help me here? It took Chloe a moment to realize he was asking her to change him. Can't you just do it yourself? Chloe asked. Evan blushed. I don't know how to take my diaper off. He said. I don't really want to, Chloe said. Come on, my mommy does it all the time. How hard can it be? Evan, Chloe said. What? Evan looked at her curiously. She could see that he didn't see any problem with asking for a diaper change. She knew he'd be another baby soon too. Nothing. See you later. See you. Evan was surprised to see Mia and Sydney in his first class, but then realized that if Sydney could change reality, changing who was in what class couldn't be that hard. He toddled over to them. Hi. He said cheerfully. Wanna play? Yeah. Mia said happily. Sydney was focused on Evan's headphones and t-shirt. They shriveled out of existence and a pacifier appeared in Evan's mouth. She glanced at his diaper and seemed satisfied that it was already messy. Sydney. Mia said. Hi. We's gonna play house. Evan's baby. Ga goo. Evan said. Even though he was playing pretend, it wasn't too far off from how he would usually act. After the loss of Evan, Chloe braced herself for Sydney to come and regress her too. It never came though. Maybe Sydney just didn't see her as a threat, maybe she forgot about her, Chloe didn't know. Either way, within a day Chloe found herself completely immersed in the new reality. Though she was still potty trained, her mother changed her into a thick diaper that night. The packages of pull UPS in her room changed into diapers. The first few times, Chloe's mother still let her use the potty when she asked to go, but after a few more days she just laughed at the idea that an 18-year-old could use the potty. Chloe couldn't use the toilet without help, her hands were far too uncoordinated to get her diaper off. She held it for as long as she could, but her mother decided that she was constipated and gave her a laxative. Chloe whimpered as she filled her diaper like a baby. Chloe could feel her brain atrophying from sheer disuse. Intelligent conversation was impossible since everyone perceived her words as little more than baby talk. The best Chloe could get was a game of peekaboo. She began peeing and pooping in her diapers in an effort to make something, anything, interesting happen in her life of endless diaper changes, bottle feedings and naps. It wasn't long before pooping became the high point of Chloe's day. She got so excited whenever she felt her stomach rumble, letting her know that soon her bowels were going to be full. She would just start pushing, trying to get it out into her diaper as soon as possible. Once she was messy she would bounce and squish her diaper as long as she could before her mother would come and comment on what a stinky baby she was before changing her. Despite being reduced to a diaper-dependent infant, she still did her best to keep her intelligence. She would scribble calculus problems with crayons to try to keep herself thinking like an adult, but as soon as the paper left her hands they always turned into childish doodles. Her mother showered praise on her for her artwork and would tape them to the fridge, which made Chloe feel proud. Eventually she just drew pictures. What was the point of writing numbers that even she didn't really understand anyways? One day, 3 months later at daycare, Chloe was sitting on the floor in just her diaper chewing on a teething ring, expected of someone her age. She still had fleeting thoughts about college and being an adult, but even to her they were little more than a fantasy. Across the room, Sydney was sitting on the floor, playing with dolls. She wasn't really into it though. She'd discovered that it was actually kind of boring being the best at everything. Sydney got showered with a near-endless stream of praise from adults for getting into pull-ups so quickly and walking and talking like an adult. At first it had been great, but it was starting to get a little old. She had accelerated her own growth so much that she was almost a year ahead of her classmates. They wouldn't be able to walk for another month or two, potty training wasn't even on their radar. No one wanted to play with her because she was too mature. Suddenly an idea popped into Sydney's mind. She remembered changing reality once or twice from a couple months ago. Maybe she could do that? Change reality so she had a friend? She looked around the room. She recognized Chloe as a familiar face, though she couldn't say why. It didn't matter to her though, she got up and toddled over. Big Gil. She said, pointing at Chloe. Nothing happened. Chloe looked up at her curiously. Big Gil. Sydney said again. She vaguely realized that the new reality had hardened in place, it was almost impossible to change anymore. Unless. Sydney felt her butt. Pull UPS were nice, but honestly she preferred diapers. Besides, she could go through potty training a third time. Big Gil. This time she pointed at herself and then Chloe to transfer a little of her reality. Sydney's butt crinkled and puffed out as she returned to diapers in one last reality shift. Chloe watched in amazement. Wow. She said. She pushed herself onto her feet to get a better look at Sydney's diaper. Then she gasped, realizing what she was doing. I walk. She said. Sydney grinned. It worked. Her knees bent slightly and her stomach rumbled. She snickered as she made a mess. She definitely wasn't potty trained anymore. Chloe saw what she was doing and mimicked her, squatting and pushing a load into her own diaper. Oh oopsie, went poopy. Sydney said. Chloe grabbed her and hugged her tightly. Thank you. She understood what Sydney had done for her. Sydney grinned. Wets be fweens. Bestest fweens. Chloe agreed. They turned to play but just then they felt their diapers be pulled back. They didn't react, they were used to diaper checks. Looks like both of you stinkers need a clean diaper. Mr. Tyler declared, looking from one diaper to the other. The girls giggled. I didn't poopy. Chloe said. I didn't go poopy either. Sydney added. Mr. Tyler rolled his eyes. Then we're just going to need to change those clean diapers. Come along now, onto the changing mats. Chloe and Sydney held hands and toddled together to get their stinky diapers changed.